Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Brittany, and this is part one of how to write a book. I think it might change, it might evolve. But I started writing a book last fall. I don't know what kind of came over me. In the past, I've had a podcast with my best friend, which was, I like to think, successful. It was so fun. It was such a creative outlet. It was so, it was just cool. It was cool to see, your work of art or what you think is a work of art come to life. And I think as a rule, I've always been a creative person, but I do think writing a book is similar in the podcast realm, as far as just your own words on paper, or on audio in the podcast case. So I really want to start a series of vlogging myself, and hopefully doing videos like this that give new writers like myself the encouragement and support and help on writing a book when you know nothing about writing a book. You hear things all the time about, like, Jasmine Guillory, for instance, who I really like. She was a lawyer and she wrote her book. There's other authors out there. I don't need to list them all, but we're similar. I mean, you know them because you probably read their books, that just decide one day, you know what, I'm gonna write something. I'm gonna write an original piece, and where am I gonna start? So background on myself is I'm 34 years old. I am unmarried. I live in Ontario, Canada. And I'm just your average Joe. I work full time, and I think finding the time to sit down and write is really easy at first, but then continuing on with your creativity can be really difficult. So just to give you, again, some background, which I just said, on what I like to read, some context of what I'll be referring to, because I do think if you're into fantasy, if you're into maybe crime, different genres are gonna have different styles. For myself specifically, this way for romance, comedy, rom-com, contemporary work really well for me. So I will give those to you, and hopefully you find value in this video, watching this right now and being like, yeah, that's me. Like, I want to write something, but I don't know where to start. Well, I just went through it, so I'm here to help you. I hope I'm here to help you. I hope this video has value. So things that I like to read, I have a few of my favorite authors just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm hoping to accomplish with my book and where I want to go with it, and the different routes that you can take it. So let me just go through. So like I said, I love Jasmine Guillory. She has some really cool ones. These books were so good, The Wedding Date and The Proposal. I really liked them. They're very sweet. So this is the kind of stuff I'm into for the most part. This one, Christina Lauren, they're such great authors. I mean, they have a whole bunch of books, obviously. This one, I just liked the whole idea of like the back and forth between the two characters, and without giving too much away, this is a really good one. Really enjoyed it. I also really like the style of this one. This is not something that I'm kind of toying with in my book myself, but I do really like the idea of the back and forth and the text conversation, because that's such a huge part of how we communicate nowadays. And then, of course, the wonderful Emily Henry. I mean, obviously you could see where that was going because of the other authors that I had in my faves. Emily Henry is just she's such a thoughtful writer. Her stuff really has meaning. Like you feel when you're reading her stuff, you really fall in love with the characters. I'm currently reading The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I do really like it. It's one of those stories that is super relatable, and most of her stuff is as such, but yeah, I really love Emily Henry. And then these two books are like a special place in my heart. So Wild by Cheryl Strayed. If you have not read this book, if you're like me, so also a little bit about myself, just while we're talking about this one, I love to camp. I love outdoorsy stuff. I love to kayak. all that kind of stuff. So this really resonated with me. I felt like, you know, what a cool story about the Pacific Crest Trail. If you don't know, it's a trail that kind of connects Canada to Mexico, right through the kind of the western seaboard. It was a really good book. It is a movie with Reese Witherspoon. I didn't actually see the movie, but I love this book. I love it. And then one of my favorite books, which was also, I would say a light read, but I know that people are gonna watch this and be like, oh my God, I like that book too. This one, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This book is so good. I remember exactly where I was when I finished it. So I was like on page like probably halfway through, and I was camping, and like I was in the tent for like 4 hours just reading. I was just stuck in it. I just had to know how it ended, and I just loved it. And it's been long enough now that I probably can read it again, because that's always the best part, is when you can read an old book and be like, oh. But this one, if you haven't read this one, read it. This one's a good one. So that's kind of, I mean, this one's obviously, if you have read this book, you know this is a little bit different, same with this one, than the other authors I have in my little pile. But it gives you an idea of kind of what I'm interested in and what I like to read. Then my book comes into play. So the easiest number one piece of advice is just start. Just start writing. Put words on paper and just go for it. I opened my laptop and I started typing. I feel like sometimes if you, like anything in life, if you place yourself where your character is placed, it helps. So like if you think about like, I'm trying to think of an example without giving my book away, but if you think about like where you are right now, okay? So if you're at your computer and you're like, okay, it's a gorgeous day out. So I would say, it's a stunning day. It was beautiful. You know, use those terms, find those words that are meaningful to you to help describe a scene. Don't get too hung up on it. Putting your thoughts to paper are the most important thing. So even if it's like, and this is what I did, even if you're typing and being like, it was an amazing day, and then I'll put like an asterisk because I'll need to come back to that paragraph and I'll continue on. Same with character names. Don't get hung up on character names. I mean, you can replace words later on and change their names. Sometimes you don't know what their name's going to be until you kind of get the story developing. But as soon as you have those, like, or even another thing, I'm jumping all over, just like how I write. But another thing is that if you're kind of going through something and when you're writing and you're like, oh my gosh, I think this is where it's going to go, just put that later on down the page, you know, like, make note of it, but not necessarily in the story yet, because then it can kind of connect the pieces. When I first started writing my book, I had no idea what it was going to do. I had no idea what I wanted it to be. There was even a point where I had two characters, or I have two characters on the, you know, developing, and I didn't even know myself where the story was going to take me. There was a point where I was like, oh man, like, is this gonna work? Is this gonna connect? Is this gonna make sense? But the story just writes itself in your head. And before you know it, there's gonna be pockets where you're just flying. Words are flying off the page. And there's gonna be times where you're like, ooh. But in those times where you're confused, just stop developing that point of the story. Continue on later on in the story. You know, if you know that you want them to end up on a road trip, talk about that. You know, go where your inspiration is. So words on paper is my first tip. That was huge. Second tip is what everyone's going to tell you. Have a goal, a word goal. Okay, by the end of day 1, I'm going to have 1,000 words. By the end of day 4, I'm going to have 1,500 words, or whatever your goal is going to be. It helps hold you accountable for the words that you're putting on paper. It doesn't always work, and I wouldn't say, like, sometimes you're gonna have amazing days. Sometimes you're gonna just, like I said, it's just gonna come to you. You're gonna be just going. Other days you're gonna open your computer and be like, today's not the day, and I am not the one, and that's okay. I think giving yourself grace, of course, because this is, at the end of the day, it's for you, right? Like, you are writing for you. And so I do think that that's okay. I mean, I'm trying to think, did I have goals? at first I was like, yeah, okay, like I have goals, definitely. But then as I got writing, I'm like, I don't think we're gonna do that. And I didn't. I did in the sense where I'm like, okay, by September 1st, I'd like to have like 10,000 words, but I gave myself a lot of leeway. Sometimes, you know, which is gonna bring me to my next point, which is number 3. Sometimes it doesn't, don't force yourself to write. So if you have a deadline of 4,000 words by the end of the week, I mean, don't force it, because the story just won't feel authentic. It won't come from your heart. It will be just filler words. Like, 'cause that's the whole thing, right? Is like when you start writing a book, you don't want to lose sight of why you're writing. I think a lot of people in anything they do have a lot of passion at first. You feel that fire under you. Like with the podcast that was going, I was so excited. I was like, let's do this. Let's film. Let's record. And then as it kind of got going, you're like, ugh, I have to edit it, you know, and that's never what you want to do with your book. I feel like you always want to feel that fire. And so if it's not there, don't force yourself. Like, don't force it. It's not worth it, because, you know, as the book progresses, you're going to have to tweak it anyways. So you might as well have good words to tweak rather than like crap words, because then you're just going to have to rewrite those sections. So I think my 4th point would be just try to, you know, to piggyback off the 3rd, is just try to remember why you're writing your book. You know, I think a lot of us in life get caught up with Instagram or YouTube or social media in general, and we tend to lose focus on our, I hate to say this word, I'm sorry, but our why, you know, our reason for doing certain things. We lose sight of that. And I think the book specifically, because it is off the social media realm, it is off of the, you know, it's old school, you're reading a book. I think it's important to remember that mental health aspect, where it's like, this is for you. This is a place where you can go and escape. And not that these places aren't places to escape, because we love books. I mean, who doesn't love a good story? But when you want to write your own, you're pretty sure of the story you have to tell. And I think just enjoy it. Like, really try to hone in on the skills that set you apart. And remember, my 5th piece of advice is try to remember you're never too old to start or too young. I mean, sometimes I get hard on myself. Like I said, I'm 34. Sometimes I get hard on myself where it's like, oh, I didn't think I'd be here in life, or I didn't think, you know, I just thought it would be different. And so with that being said, it's easy to get caught up on the where I should be's and the what ifs and I think just doing it is important, because you're going to look back on this moment a year and you're like, okay, I could have been a year in. And I mean, that's just basic advice. That's just reiterating that I'm a 34-year-old woman and I'm starting, and it's okay to start. There's lots of authors, there's lots of people out there that do that and are successful. And even if you're not successful, you're successful in your heart. And I think that that's important, because my 6th point is there's going to be tons of drafts. Like, you know, when you're writing a book, sometimes there's like 10 drafts. I'm not quite there yet. I've only just finished my 1st draft, and I'm still even tweaking that. I think the consensus is try to write 100,000 words, and that might get kind of cut down to 80,000, 85,000. If you've written a book, feel free to comment below and help me, you know, find my way. But I do think that this platform does lend well to helping. And a lot of times we just find that we're just, you know, it's advertising or it's just fluff. And not that I'm not gonna have fluff, because I do think vlogging is fun. And I have vlogged myself a little bit of writing my book and doing various things, but I think that that's just life. I mean, I can't be writing my book 24/7, and there's chores to be done. There's beds to be made and there's dishes to be washed. So yeah, I'm really excited that you're watching this, and thank you for watching 15 minutes of just I say blabbering, but it's important because if you are writing a book and you're starting to get excited about different projects that, you know, inspire you, then I think that a video like this would be really helpful for me when I was getting started, because a lot of the times on YouTube, especially, you see people who are already established. They've already written a book. They've already done it. I thought it'd be kind of neat to vlog doing it. And then that way people can look back and be like, oh, okay, well, that's where I am. And I also feel lost and stuck. Maybe there's something to be said about, you know, this is where we all should be. We don't talk enough about that transparency, about like just how hard life can be sometimes. And I think supporting each other really makes a difference. So that's all I have to say. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna do a part 2, and part 2 is gonna be more in depth about, you know, how I go about like actually setting up my story, how I went about developing my characters kind of off the page. It's going to be more about like, how do I stay focused? Like, what do I do in the sense of the environment that I'm working in? Do I listen to music beforehand? It's a big thing. I mean, that's the other thing I'll say, just to kind of summarize all this, is you're writing a book. Be excited. If you've clicked into this video, it's because you're like, hey, I want to do something cool. So we're gonna do it together, and we're gonna find out how to, do we self-publish? Do we try to send out our book? Is our book just gonna be our own little private secret? We're gonna figure it out together, and I'm actually really looking forward to it, and I hope that you come along. I don't want to say the whole like and subscribe, but please like and subscribe. I think it will make me feel good, even if nothing else, just to know that somebody's watching. Y'all have to start from somewhere, and that's the other thing, you know, if you are also wanting to pop on YouTube, or if you want to do a podcast, like, let me know in the comments. Like I said earlier, I can, not so much YouTube, I'm still learning, it's tough. But yeah, let me know about podcasting. I can tell you what programs I've used in the past. I can tell you anything you need to know. I'm not saying I was like a master podcast editor, but I feel like I was pretty good. I was using sound effects and stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.